Hi folks, it's FloridaMan again. Today I'm bringing you an after-action report for a live game I played on playdiplomacy.com. This was a 3-hour live game that finished after the conclusion of the 3-hour period, so sort of a simulation of the conditions of a house game. And I thought it was a good bit of fun, and so I wanted to tell the story of what happened. I played as England. I started out the game in 1901, communicating with both France and Germany, not sure which of them I was going to work with, but remaining open to either one, making friendly overtures to both sides. Ultimately, I make a deal with France not to go for the Channel. Neither of us goes for the Channel. He opens to the Mid-Atlantic, I open to the North Sea and the Norwegian Sea. Germany had tried to persuade me to go for the Channel, but he understood that that was too overt of a move for me. And so I seem to be on good terms with both of them, which is probably a good thing because it looks like Russia has opened north for some reason. And I realized that I'm not even sure I messaged Russia in all of the excitement of the first turn because, with these live games, they frequently seem to rush by very quickly. I quickly rectify that, and I tell Russia that, that army looks awfully unfriendly there. And he promises he's going to move it south, and he didn't really want to seem unfriendly to me. And I don't totally believe him, so at first I think, well, I'm going to have to support myself into Norway to make sure I get it. And that's what Germany assumes I'm going to do as well, and France, I think. But France also notes that because Germany and he have not moved toward Belgium, I could potentially go for Belgium. And at the last minute in this season, I end up making the decision to gamble and go for both Norway and Belgium, because it's really better for me to have the two centers, or a chance at the two centers, a certainty of Belgium, for this season at least, than it is for me to, put everything into Norway and win. Because I'm thinking I'm going to work with Germany at this point, and if Germany is indeed going to work with me, then I might as well have a foothold on the land with which to advance against France, and if he's not going to work with me, then I have a foothold on the land with which to advance against Germany. So all around, it makes a lot of sense for me to do this. And I do it. I actually succeed in getting into both Norway and Belgium, and that's a very happy moment, I think, because I was on the edge of my seat there. Russia makes an interesting set of orders here. He actually tries to convoy his army from St. Petersburg to Sweden, and he gets bounced by Germany. I'm not sure what he was really thinking there, but I guess he figured that Germany didn't plan to bounce him, and so he wasted 2 units. Meanwhile, in the south, he's actually lost out on Romania. So Austria is growing quite powerful because of the absence of Russian strength and diplomacy in the south, and at the same time Turkey has also moved in an anti-Russian kind of way, taking the Black Sea and Armenia. So it looks as if Russia is kind of moving sort of incompetently. At the same time, Italy has been communicating privately with me and Germany, kind of insistent that he wants to attack France early on. And we don't discourage him. We tell him to, we'll come and join you any minute now. And he actually does just go full on against France early on. He doesn't even secure Tunisia in 1901. So the Italian player, unfortunately, plays very incompetently and puts himself in a vulnerable position with a very strong Austrian. And in spring 1902, we see Austria starting to move to take advantage of that. He puts 2 fleets into the seas next to Italy and moves his army from Vienna into Trieste. At the same time, I had decided to work with Germany against France, and accordingly I had also decided to move a couple of units against Russia, and so you see me deploy into the seas around France, and Germany had asked for Belgium, even though he hadn't particularly shown any particular need for it earlier, and I figured I'm going to get Brest, so I tell him to go ahead and force Belgium. It will confuse France and make him think we're fighting. And he does that. I probably should have noted how kind of greedy Germany seems, because he's asking me for a center. He already had he'd gained as many centers as I had in 1901, and this season he knows he's going to get Sweden, because Russia has surrendered now. So Germany gets into both Belgium and Sweden, and I retreat to Picardy, which was my plan in letting him support himself into Belgium. I could retreat forward and gain an advantage over France. And France actually seems to be fooled by what we were trying as a ploy. He actually asks me if I want support back into Belgium, and I tell him yes, because why not? Why not get him to waste a move from Burgundy? And in my message to Germany, I tell him he should force his way into Burgundy as well. And so in the fall of this season, with Russia surrendered, he's collapsing completely. His homeland is completely falling apart. I take St. Petersburg, and Turkey takes Moscow and Sevastopol. Germany has walked into Warsaw, which I thought was an interesting decision, kind of, in my mind, a waste of manpower that could have been devoted to our front with France. But I get it. I just don't think he's going to be able to hold on to Warsaw, so I'm not sure I see the point. I, at the same time, take Brest and the mid-Atlantic Ocean, and France, poor sweet France, who had actually supported me from his unit in Burgundy, gets dislodged from Burgundy and loses Brest. But he does get Portugal, so he's not going to be down a unit. In fact, he's going to be up a unit. And Austria has pretty much destroyed Italy already. But Italy is still insisting that he's going to take France down because I guess that's just his thing. Because I gained Brest and St. Petersburg, it doesn't really matter that I lost Belgium. I still have a build. And I discuss with Germany what we should build. I tell him to please build armies, and that I would consider fleets as unfriendly. And he says, oh yeah, I'll make sure to do that. Plus, Austria is looking pretty strong. And so I just build a fleet, as I would have no matter what. And I see Germany has built 2 fleets and 1 army. So that's a little bit annoying, kind of demoralizing, because I thought I had an ally. I probably should have been tipped off by the fact that Germany was really, really interested in taking something from me in 1902, more so than he was concerned about taking things from France. And so now I'm frantically doing diplomacy with France, trying to get him back on side. I'm doing diplomacy with Italy, trying to get him to leave France alone and go and defend himself against Austria, because I want France to be able to devote his full attention to war with Germany. And France says he wants to see what I'm going to do before he agrees to do anything himself. And I tell him that's done, I'm going to walk out of Brest, and I'm going to move all of my units away from you and toward Germany. And in the spring I do just that. I actually abandon St. Petersburg in favor of positioning to take Sweden, and I move from London to the North Sea. I use the Channel to support Brest back into Picardy. I move Mid-Atlantic into North Atlantic. And France is still in trouble, because even though I gave him back Brest, Italy is still attacking him. Italy just moved on into Marseille, which France had vacated because I think he assumed Italy was going to act in defense of Italy's actual homeland, which is now mostly occupied by Austria, but is certainly not going to be liberated as a result of Italy taking Marseille. Turkey and Austria are in a state of peaceful cooperation, which the rest of the board is beginning to take notice of at this point. In fall, I successfully break into Sweden, and I meant to just cut support from Denmark, but I take Denmark, and I get into Belgium, because even though I didn't expect to get it, I did support myself in, and Germany just made a bunch of mistakes, I suppose. He didn't support Belgium. I'm wondering if he only half-issued his orders, because he did issue orders for Denmark and for Sweden, but he didn't actually issue orders for all of his units. Some of them just held. Anyway, I'm happy because I just suddenly gained 3 centers while only losing Brest, and Turkey didn't even walk into St. Petersburg, even though I left it open. And at this point, Austria and Turkey are clearly a strong alliance, and I frantically, because it's a live game, I frantically message back and forth with France and Germany in order to try and organize a belated Western triple and get Germany to agree to it if I'm willing to do, and France to agree to it if I'm willing to do the legwork of communicating. And so I basically start giving them orders. I tell Germany to destroy his fleets that had so offended me, and he does so. I build an army and a fleet, and I start strategizing with my comrades, and suddenly this game has taken a very positive turn for me, because I'm now the leader of an alliance, instead of being potentially attacked by both of my neighbors. And I move into position to permanently defend St. Petersburg against any possible attack from the south. I move into position to help France to defend Spain and to defend himself in general in the Mediterranean against Austria. Austria still only has 2 fleets, and Turkey has kept his fleets back so as to avoid being all up in Austria's grill. So France and I, if we can fully deploy our forces in the Mediterranean, clearly actually have naval supremacy. We have like twice as many fleets as Austria available for the fight. So on those fronts, things are going well. St. Petersburg secure, Mediterranean looking good. France has reclaimed Marseille. However, in the middle, Germany is losing ground. Germany loses Silesia to an Austro-Turkish attack, and he actually makes well, I wouldn't call it another. He makes a mistake here. He fails to retreat to a location that's permissible, and he retreats to Bohemia, where there had been a bounce. And so his unit is destroyed. And as a result, he actually tells me in fall to walk into Holland, because he can't build since he's occupying all of his home centers defensively, so I might as well have that one. And I grant his request. At the same time, France and I are making progress in the Mediterranean. I take North Africa and fill Mid-Atlantic Ocean up, and France continues to be the occupier of Marseille. Unfortunately, France decided not to support Germany in Munich for some reason, and so Austria gets in there in the fall. France offers his immediate apologies for that, and pledges to support it in the future. Germany retreats and has to destroy his unit that was in Silesia. I have a build, so I make a new army and promise to convoy it onto the mainland in order to help with the fight. And in my head, this is starting to get to a place where I'm thinking, we're going to eventually push back Austria in the Mediterranean, and I'm getting more and more units wrapped around my comrades. So eventually, I believe at this point, I probably would have had a good shot at getting units past the Mediterranean stalemate lines, and maybe eventually getting into a place where I can solo. But that really depends on whether Austria or Turkey would turn on each other once it was clear that Austria would not be able to actually successfully advance against us, and that Austria was losing ground. I suspect that Turkey would have turned on Austria, which would have probably given me my opening. But this is a short game. It has a definite end period, and everyone starts talking about the fact that the end period is coming, and I hadn't even noticed it until they mentioned it, but I think, well, since this is the last season, and I could end this as the board leader, and my thoughts go along that route. And so what I do is I continue working together cooperatively for the most part. I still support St. Petersburg in place, and I still try to use North Africa to move into Tunisia, but I enter Baltic Sea supporting Denmark to Kiel, and I move Mid-Atlantic Ocean into Portugal. Now, if the game had continued, I couldn't have held Portugal, and I wouldn't have stabbed for Portugal and Kiel. And actually, the stab was so poorly thought out, or so suddenly thought through, that I actually didn't even order Denmark to Kiel. So I didn't get Kiel only because I forgot to order Denmark moving there. Otherwise, I would have been more of the board topper than I actually was. And I believe I was the board topper because Germany took back Munich from Austria at the end, and at the same time I got Portugal. But it was a fun game, and I thought it was really cool. I hardly ever get to see a Western triple actually come together and function successfully, and I think only in these belated situations where it comes together to counter a powerful Eastern alliance have I actually seen a Western triple hold out effectively and successfully begin to actually work together, rather than very quickly falling into backstabbing. It was a fun game. I think it was interesting. Germany made it clear at the end that he had stabbed me because he was engaged in a bit of geographical determinism. He figured that if England works with Germany, England will inevitably be in a position to have the opportunity to stab Germany, and I can't say that he's entirely wrong. I think England and Germany and England and France have that same problem, that England is this corner power that will always ultimately, inevitably, want to grow through one or both of its neighbors. And so if it's left to grow, it can grow out of control, and ultimately it's likely to stab you at the least convenient time, because once England has taken St. Petersburg and secured it, there's not really anybody else besides the Western powers that can fight England. And so if you allied with England and you eliminated one of the other two Western powers, you could end up being pretty vulnerable. I've never really come up with a good counter to that idea, or even to that problem when I'm playing as France or Germany. When I'm France or Germany, I usually prefer allying with the other of those two, rather than England, because I do agree that there's a geographical issue. It was a fun game. Austria and Turkey, they played well as well, and I thought France and Germany did as well as they could with the situations they had. But I felt particularly proud about the way I conducted myself. I don't consider myself to be particularly good at playing England, but this game showed that I could make a strong showing as England, and I felt really good about the photo finish. That was the game BattleAxe, and I hope you've enjoyed this after-action report. Please comment below if you have any questions or requests, comments, thoughts, and if you liked this video, I hope you'll like and subscribe. Until next time, FloridaMan, out.